Good morning and welcome to the Board of County Commissioners meeting. Today is Tuesday, March 3rd. We do begin each of our meetings with an invocation, and this morning we have Pastor Raymond Pettit from Outside the Gates Worship to deliver that invocation for us. We invite you to stand and join us.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Heavenly Father, we thank you for this beautiful day that you've given to us. We just pray for our military right now, God, and all that's going on. Just pray that you'll give us wisdom to know how, where, so that we can bring them all home. And for those that do not make it home, protect their families. But Father, we also pray for those that are here at this place here in El Paso County. Lord, there are some that are struggling. I pray that you'll give them strength. Help them during this time. Father, as these men and women are making decisions for the El Paso County, I just pray, God, you'll give them the wisdom to know what's going on in your life, for their life, for the lives of those around us. Father, we just pray for our first responders, that you'll minister to each one of them each day, Lord, as they struggle through the things we're going through. And Father, I pray that you just put a special protection upon each and every one of us that are here and those that are in El Paso County, so that we can realize that you are still with us. We thank you for what you're doing and what you've done. We'll ask it in Christ's name. Amen.
Pledge of Allegiance.
Flag, United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Item 3.
Item number 3 is staff emergency items, and I'm unaware of any staff emergency items today.
Item 4.
Item number 4 is changes, postponements, and notice of the next meeting. I'm unaware of any changes or postponements to today's agenda, and the next meeting will be Tuesday, March 10th at 9:00 a.m.
Item 5.
Item number 5 is the consent calendar, including items 5A through 505.
Okay, is there anyone here who wishes to speak on an item on the consent calendar today? Are you here to speak on an item on the consent calendar? Okay. Okay, then you're sure. I understand. Okay, thank you for the clarification. All right, so just one more call. Is there anyone here who wishes to speak on an item on the consent calendar? Okay, hearing none, I'll bring it up here for a motion or any comments from commissioners. Commissioner Applegate.
There's no questions. Move to approve item 5, the consent calendar. Items A through O5.
Second. Okay, that's been moved and seconded. One last opportunity for any comments or questions. Seeing none, I'll call the roll, beginning with Commissioner Wysong.
Aye.
Vice Chair Nelson.
Aye.
Commissioner Applegate.
Aye.
Commissioner Williams.
Aye.
And the chair votes aye. That passes 5-0. Item 6.
Item number 6 is comments by elected officials and commissioner liaison reports. 6A, Clerk and Recorder 2025 end of year summary report. Steve Schleicher, Clerk and Recorder.
Good
Good morning,
morning.
Commissioners. Steve Schleicher, your El Paso County Clerk and Recorder. But before I provide you guys with our annual report for the Clerk's Office for 2025, I thought it necessary to provide you with an update with the Core 21 implementation that I briefed you on several weeks ago. So following the statewide Core 21 motor vehicle software implementation, our team has served more than 15,000 in-person customers in just 10 days. That's an average of 1,500 customers per day while maintaining an average wait time of less than 37 minutes. So I'm very proud of the professionalism and dedication our staff has demonstrated during this major transition. Some of our branch offices are seeing over 200 individuals that are sitting in the lobbies waiting to be serviced, but I'm also very proud of our customers and their patience and understanding as we work through the challenges that came with implementing this new statewide system. I will share with each and every one of you is when the state rolls out a statewide system, there's always going to be some hiccups, but I will tell you is the 7 weeks we put into preparing absolutely paid off. So on the 18th of February, when we reopened back up, we saw over 2,000 citizens that day, and we were able to service each and every one. So just to share with you, it's business as usual. Our lobbies are full, and folks are back in, registering their vehicles, getting title work done, everything that they have expected. And believe it or not, the system has not gone down. So things are actually moving in a very solid direction. Blake, can you pull up the presentation for me, please? But one thing I want to share with you is, again, to brag about the work that the staff in the clerk and recorder's office is doing. In 2025 is we implemented a vision and a mission within the office, and the vision that I implemented is to be the trusted source of information and business transactions in the areas of elections, motor vehicle recording, and clerk to the Board of County Commissioners, which we know we have the best clerk to the board in the entire state. So through innovative processes and renowned expertise and a fully engaged workforce, the public is confident in the clerk's office. And as you guys know, my office touches almost every citizen within El Paso County if it's dealing with marriage licenses, motor vehicle registrations, your ballot, things like that. Our mission is to provide services in accordance with the Colorado Constitution, statutes, and legal requirements. Services are delivered in a timely, cost-efficient, accurate, professional, and secure manner with respect and courtesy to the public that we are privileged to serve. So what I want to talk to you about is some highlights is, as you know, this year we launched the free property protection program. That is going over exceptionally well. I have been to almost every title company. I've been talking to a lot of the brokers and also a lot of senior organizations as far as getting signed up for the free property protection program. We successfully coordinated the 2025 coordinated election. And if you remember, we also had a D11 recount, which we completed well in advance of the statutory timeline. In addition to that is our clerk to the board handled thousands of property appeals in 2025. As we know, an odd year is a reappraisal year for our county assessor's office, which meant we see an uptick in property appeals, and Jackie and her staff handled over 2,200 Board of Equalization appeals. So looking at basically what's going on here is taking a look at everything that Jackie has done: BOE appeals, agenda items, resolutions, contract, liquor license, abatements, secure transportation licenses, medical marijuana licenses. I will share with you is this is all done with a team of 2, which most metro counties have far more staff than that. In addition, is some counties don't even have a clerk to the board. So I consider myself extremely grateful for the clerk that we have here handling all of this. And absolutely at no time will you ever hear a complaint from our clerk to the board. Elections, as shared, is we had just a shy of a 37% turnout on the coordinated election. We did the District 11 recount, and we also launched Ballot Verifier, which now any citizen in El Paso County or even outside the county can absolutely audit any race, any question, any election that they want, where you can go out there and see the ballots and also see the cast vote records side to side, and also the adjudication where you can see where the bipartisan judges, where they make a determination of the intent of the voter. So you can now see that. That is going over exceptionally well. And commissioners, thank you. Because if you remember, it was with your permission that it allowed me to get that. So I appreciate you granting that to us as a critical need. Motor vehicle titles, we did over 250,000 titles. MV Express. So what MV Express is where a soldier, airman, anybody active duty military in uniform come on in, they get head of the line. So you're looking at just shy of 82,000 service members that we assisted. We did over 80,000 driver's licenses. Every month, we're between 35 to 45% higher in driver's license issuances than the state office. And 11,600 military transactions. And as you can see, what is going on here is wait times were cut nearly in half from 2024 to 2025. We went from 22 minutes to less than 12 minutes in 1 year. So this is just something where our staff absolutely are paying attention. I have an amazing leadership team, and they just do a wonderful job where you cut that by 50%. Our kiosk performance, we have 13 kiosks throughout El Paso County. I will share with you is there's going to be some changes coming this year, and I'm looking forward to it with our kiosks. Some of the issues with our kiosks is our active duty military is exempt from ownership tax. Our kiosks cannot calculate that. So our military cannot use those kiosks, which is something I've been working with our vendor to sit there and try to get taken care of. However, we are going to be moving where here soon in our kiosks, you're going to be able to renew your driver's licenses at a kiosk instead of having to go in and sit in the lobby. But as you can see is we have just shy of 110,000 total kiosk transactions. The number one, anybody want to take a guess which one's the number one kiosk in the state? Union Town Center. So up there in Briargate, Wolf Ranch, that is the number one in the state. Recording. Documents recorded, 114,220. Pages processed, over 500,000. E-recordings, 97,000. And we did just shy of 7,600 marriage and civil unions. One thing I really like to see every Saturday, because I'm the only clerk's office in the state that is open on Saturdays, is people are coming from other counties. In fact, 2 weeks ago, we had a couple absolutely come from Telluride to come down and get their marriage license on a Saturday, which was one heck of a drive, but they absolutely loved it. And we see people coming here to get their marriage licenses or their driver's license update, and they're getting it here from El Paso County. But here is, you'll probably hear this from Nikki throughout the year. This is really something that she keeps her finger on the pulse, because when we start seeing recordings going up, that means we're starting to see warranty deeds coming in. We're starting to see real estate transactions, you know, just a lot of normal things. And we're starting to see that uptick, as she has shared with you in other budget presentations, in recording. So things are starting to pick up a little. Our clerk to the board dispersed $35,380, and the office retained $4,900. Year over year balance, this was an increase of 9.5%. Elections, we dispersed $25, retained $6,416, and this actually comes from candidates when they're coming in asking for data and or their campaigns. But this has gone down somewhat over years past, but you know, we're still seeing an increase of 29.8% because of our new EPC VIP website, where candidates can now go out there and get that information for free. Motor vehicle, we dispersed $199 million to the state, retained $8.9 million, and we're seeing an increase of 2.8%. Recording, and this is why Nikki really likes recording, because if you look at the disparity in motor vehicle, 90% of that revenue is sent to the state, where 3% is retained here in our general fund. Recording, it's opposite. We keep 97%, where 3% goes up to the state. So when you're looking at a disbursement of $395,000, we retain $4.9 million with an increase of 19.9%.
So what you're saying is every time a document is recorded, Nikki's crystal ball lights up? It's confirming. Okay.
Yeah, that's it. And, you know, I just sit there, and Nikki will reach out and say, hey, how are things going with recording? But yes, Commissioner, absolutely. Her crystal ball lights up there.
Okay.
The total revenue for clerk and recorder is we dispersed over $200 million, 93.24%. And that disbursement also goes to some of our local cities, towns, municipalities, and the state. And we retained $14.5 million. 2026 goals is always work on improving motor vehicle customer satisfaction. We are getting ready to go live with a brand new Q-Flow program. And commissioners, what's Q-Flow? So when you go into a branch office and you pull a number and you sit in the lobby and they say, okay, we're now serving ticket number 510, that's a Q-Flow program. But what we have been doing, and I've been working with our county administrator on a number of things in regards to how to reduce the number of individuals within the lobbies, is using technology. Here very soon, is a customer will be able to pull a number and get emailed and text when their number's getting ready to be called. So they no longer have to sit in our lobby. They can go sit down, get a cup of coffee, go shopping, do whatever. But the drawback is my team has done such a wonderful job, is 12 minutes after you get your ticket is going to be very, very quick. But at least they can go next door and get a cup of coffee at a Starbucks, at the Safeway, or King Soopers. Always enhance election engagement and transparency. Over the last 3 years working with this board, I think we have become the leader in the state when it comes to election transparency. Many of the things we incorporated were either first in the nation or first in the state. For example, streaming our ballot boxes. And so that is one thing that is actually taking off, and also doing our voter roll cleanup with Experian. That is getting a lot of conversation right now. In fact, there was a bill that was ran this year that should be a statewide initiative, and there's a lot of discussion going. And unfortunately, that bill died, and there was some amendments trying to bring that back yesterday on the floor. However, believe it or not, this is now a nonpartisan, where other folks, doesn't matter if you're Democrat or Republican, think this is a great idea.
Yeah, if I just ask a question about that? We're also seeing some bills work their way through the legislature in regards to limiting government's ability to buy third-party data. So how would that affect this program? It's one of the things I've thought about quite frequently when we've had these conversations.
Madam Chair, that is a really good question. It would affect immensely when you're trying to do voter roll cleanup. The other thing that I sat there and I wrote, to the bill sponsors and co-sponsors, is I feel they had no idea the effect on motor vehicle, because we use third-party vendors. And we do that because we have to sit there and know exactly where a person lives for the correct sales tax within a jurisdiction. That is third-party information that we utilize. And I've put it out there is when you use the term government entity, that applies to all, to include the clerk and recorder's office. And I will share with you the way that bill is written right now, Madam Chair, that is not a good bill. It would affect us immensely.
Thank you. And I'm pretty sure CCI has already taken a position against this, but it's something we'll continue to talk about, because I think the intention is to make sure that government is accountable and those things. But in a case like this, you're literally taking away our ability to clean up our voter rolls. And I certainly don't think that's what the sponsors intended. They just didn't understand the consequences. So thank you for your work on that.
Absolutely. The other thing is, citizens are okay and they understand mistakes, but they don't understand mistakes when it comes to their vote. And they don't understand charging them with sales tax and ownership tax. Because they'll sit there and say, hey, I paid you now, when am I going to get a refund? But we need to make sure it's those third-party vendors that we are charging appropriately for where they live, because we know each entity throughout El Paso County has different sales tax rates. One thing that I was hyper-focused on when I became your clerk is digitizing our records for accessibility. We have already completed all of our 1980 through 1989 documents. We're working on the 1979s. And in 2026, I want to go ahead and wrap up all the 1970s. But over the next 4 years, my goal is to sit there and have everything back to when we become a county that is digitized and available to all of our citizens, to include the land books, where right now it is really, really cool to go in there and look at the plat books and land books and find out who was the first owner of a certain parcel here in El Paso County, and doing the whole entire history. But those books, of course, are old. They're valuable, and of course, over time, they've been damaged. But we need to preserve that, and so that's what I'm going to be attempting to do in the next 4 years, and also continue office innovation, improving satisfaction, absolute transparency, and operational efficiency office-wide. So, just to share with you, that is a little report card, but everything that you have seen there, commissioners, is due because of the 175 full-time, part-time staff in your motor vehicle offices. But again, I cannot thank them enough for over the last 2 weeks, the work they have done for our customers after going live with Core 21. And to share with you is it's business as usual, and we're back to normal. Are there any questions?
Vice Chair Nelson.
You mentioned that people will be able to renew their driver's licenses through a kiosk. Do you have a timing of when that's going to roll out and be available?
So I do. So probably here in the next, I would say 90 days, I've been working with our vendor, Numo, expanding that service. They did testing in Georgia in the southeast of the United States, and they really want to hyper focus because we have the most kiosks. And of course, I think it would be an amazing opportunity where folks here can just go to a kiosk in their grocery store and, you know, update their driver's license. So I would say in the next 90 days per conversations I've had with our vendor.
Is this when they aren't able to renew online, or in addition to just another option, or they let time go too far and so the window for online renewal has passed, so now you can go to a kiosk? Or
Yep. So Commissioner, absolutely. So you still have the online option to be able to do that. The other thing is also being able to go to a kiosk. It would be the same services. Right now, just to be fully transparent, I am in contact with the Department of Revenue. They have reached out and asked if my office can assist with other matters like doing initial licensing for our children. You know, the 16-year-olds that get permits. That's something we have not done before. But right now, their appointments are about 3 months behind. And so they're asking for help. And so I'm in communication with them, which means that revenue would come to El Paso County and not go to the Department of Revenue. However, I've also shared that once you put something out there to the public, you cannot take it back. So this is something, if we decide to help them, is if we put it out there to help them do an initial licensure, I'm not taking it back. That's going to be a courtesy we provide citizens because they just don't understand. So that would be something that we continue to do.
I didn't realize that we didn't provide that service, that it's through the state. That
Yeah,
initial-
Commissioner, there's a number of services. There's one service that I will not do. One of which is providing IDs to illegal aliens. And one of the reasons why I do not want to do that is because I am the chief election officer for El Paso County, and I just don't want that under the purview of elections. I think it needs to be separate where the state issues that, and I can do everything else to facilitate. But when you start putting that together, it just clouds things. So to me, it makes more sense where I do the elections and the state does, IDs for illegal aliens.
One last thing on the free property protection program. If people want to sign up, can you just give where they would go for that information?
Another good question. So they can go to my direct website, which is clerkandrecorder.elpasoco.com. Very easy. It's fast, free, easy. And I'll tell you, the seniors are absolutely overjoyed with it because, they sit at home and they watch these commercials on Property Lock that could cost them $75 to $100 a month. But, once I share with them, is guess where they get that information? The clerk and recorder's office. So having that free program out there, and it has gone over immensely well. I've been going around to the title companies. They're going to include it in all their title work. At closings, they're going to be handing out our pamphlets to everybody who's coming in, buying, selling. So it's going over exceptionally well. And right now, I believe we're at just over 40,000 individuals that have signed up in the last 2 months.
That's great. I think we often think about the role of government is to protect citizens, and we think in terms of law enforcement, but this is absolutely a mechanism where you're able to use your office to help protect our citizens and their assets. And so nice work in spreading the word and getting it out there for new home buyers too. Good job.
Thank you, ma'am.
Commissioner Weisong.
Thank you, Madam Chair. 2 questions. Is the alert by texting in the works yet for your property fraud?
No, right now, Commissioner, it is only by email, not text, because we have to look at some confidential, because right now cell phone numbers are considered confidential. So those are things that we have to work through, especially when we're sitting here working with a third party, which is our recording vendor. So those are things here in the next year that I want to advance it to be able to text folks. But that absolutely is a question that has come up each and every time I go out and talk about it, is texting.
Yeah, it's the one differentiator that the external will still offer.
Yes, sir.
When you said your wait times have cut nearly in half, do you attribute that to more kiosks, or is it just and/or greater efficiencies within the office itself for DMV?
So I would sit there and attribute it to greater efficiencies. We've always, before, I became clerk and recorder, we had 12 kiosks. I added an additional one, and I got another one that's going to be coming in here the next couple months. However, what we have done is basically established leadership within the motor vehicle department, where now each branch not only has a supervisor, has an assistant supervisor, 2 specialists, and we also have trainers. So folks just don't feel like they're left alone and looking at a lobby of 100 people sitting there. And what these trainers are, these are individuals that are sitting there and they're available at a moment's notice to help somebody through a hard title transaction, or if they're doing an out-of-state title transaction. So we established that. In addition, is we actually set up a 3-month training program that we do before anybody gets on the line. So that way they're prepared, they know what's going on. So they go through 3 months of training even before they go to their branch office, and it has paid off immensely.
Great. The new motor vehicles software, do you see that even adding more efficiencies to reducing the wait time, or is it going to be about the same?
I think it's going to be about the same, Commissioner, but the thing is, the 2 things that I think that are going to be a positive about it, one is the old system drives used to go down quite a bit, and it was due basically to how many people were on the network. And now they have upgraded that. And the other thing, as you guys as commissioners know, we see bills during a legislative session that are just nonstop, and a lot of them are geared towards motor vehicle. And in the old drive system, it would take a huge effort from the state to try to update that system just to meet, current law. Now it can be updated really, really quick, as laws are passed in regards to motor vehicles. So I think we're going to see a lot of improvement on that side.
Good, great, thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Commissioner Applegate.
Thank you. So you've told me about the Experian reports and how you do the kind of the auditing process. Can you go into a little more detail of that so we have it on the record?
Absolutely. So, Commissioner, this is something I've been doing since 2023. And I know you and Commissioner Wysong and Commissioner Nelson weren't here. And I'll tell you, it was the support of your other commissioners that have sat on the board, Commissioner Williams and Madam Chair. So we were the first in the state to run it. And the reason why is because I identified, something that I felt needed to be corrected is when I ran for county clerk, I recognized nearly 49,000 undeliverable ballots. And I'm just sitting here going, okay, something is up with this, but that is not something different of every major office that mails out statutory notices. When I was your county assessor, we saw the same amount of returns from property notices of value or when we sent out senior homestead exemption flyers. So one thing that I looked at is we have a voting block of 18 to 35-year-olds, and a lot of us have children that are getting ready to hit that age or have children that are in that age that have never used the USPS. They have never addressed an envelope, and they have never, ever put a stamp on an envelope. And that's not to say that's bad. It's just generational, because we see, for instance, my daughter, she's never wrote a check. She's never sent a check into to pay a bill. And right now, they don't even send Christmas cards. Everything is a text going, hey, Merry Christmas, Dad, happy birthday, things like that. But with your vote, you have to sit there, since we're a mail-in ballot state, is we need to ensure we have the best address that is available. So a great example, I've already done 4 queries. We just did a query last week. And in that query, what we wanted to do is we reached out to the voters that did not participate in the 2025 coordinated election, and also had an email address on file with their voter registration, because sending an email to the voter just asking, hey, how are things going? Did you move? Things like that is free. So what we ended up doing is we reached out to those individuals, and within 30 hours, we had over 150 voters reach out to us saying, I no longer live in El Paso County or the state of Colorado, which meant by federal law, we can then remove them from the voter rolls based on that information. Just to give you a little bit of update, is in the 7 weeks leading up to the query we did last week, we only had 130. So you're talking within 30 hours, because of the Experian data that we get, is we had 150, and that number's still going up because as people are reaching out to us. But as of late last week, there was 150 individuals within 30 hours that reached out to us. Why is that important? Well, it's important because we're getting ready to sit there and participate in our June primary election. We're getting ready to finalize things. We have to shut the voter rolls down to send off to our vendor, because we're getting ready to mail out our uniformed overseas UACAVA ballots. So this is why we do this timing. But Commissioner, I will tell you, and I appreciate the support of this board, but I will continually do that because we have seen nothing but amazing results. And the community here absolutely is like, Steve, thank you for thinking outside the box and doing this to ensure our voter rolls are clean.
Commissioner Williams.
Okay, mine is a little bit more simpler than all of these. So the first one is this: if we do take over driver's license appointments, the State Colorado Department of Revenue's office is located on Union, around there. And they have a bill this year that says if you miss that appointment, they're going to charge you $100. And so I would be really excited if we did take over the driver's license examinations, but I'm not going to charge people who miss their appointments. Give me a break. I think that's a money grab on the part of the State Department of Revenue. So the second thing is elections. And today is actually one of your first elections, and you have 8 or so election staff that are staying late tonight to man the phones.
Yes,
so
ma'am.
if you cannot find the location of your caucus, which starts at 7 p.m., you can call 719-575-VOTE.
8683, yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
Absolutely, and thank you. So I have come out in opposition to that bill, Commissioner. First and foremost is the messaging. One is a lot of folks still believe because if the state does appointments, the county's doing appointments, and we do not do appointments. We got rid of that after COVID, and we have not been doing appointments for a number of years, but the state continues to do it. And that plays into part of why their appointments are so far behind. It's, first come, first serve, unless you're uniformed military, things like that. But I do not believe in fining somebody, money for missing an appointment or being late for an appointment. And it's very bad messaging because that is something where folks will automatically assume the county is doing the same thing as the state, which is absolutely not true. And so I'm absolutely opposed to the bill. And Commissioner, your verbiage was 100% right on. It's to fund the new Core 21 program.
Okay, lots of questions, which means I guess that we're very interested in this, and we know the public is as well. I'll just wrap it up with my last question, which is, you talked about the possibility of doing those initial licenses, having 2 teenagers. I'm going through that process a little bit right now. One of the things that I've talked about a lot is how surprising it has been about the automatic voter registration, that the state, when they're going in for their initial license, they do automatically register the vote. They don't tell them that they're doing that. They don't ask them if they'd like to, if they'd like to register to vote. They don't ask them what party they'd like to affiliate with or to not affiliate at all. And so, we were very aware of that in our family. And so told our, teenagers, watch out for that, which is, at this point is just a pre-registration, right? Before they're 18. But watch out for that postcard in the mail, because that's your opportunity to see you've been registered and to declare a party if you'd like. But if you were to take on those initial licenses, would you have the flexibility within the current law to do any of that differently, at least talk to folks as they get those initial licenses?
Absolutely. One of the things is there was a bill that was ran and it was killed last week in regards to automatic voter registration, and was done by a local senator here in town. And really what it was is currently the way the system is if a individual comes in and if they do not opt in to, become an unaffiliated Democrat, Republican, or a minor party, then the clerk and recorder needs to reach out to them, and they have basically 20 days to reply back to your clerk and recorder's office to signify what party affiliation they want to be. So after that 20 days, if you hear nothing by state law, then they're basically put down as unaffiliated. However, the way the state is working right now is if you don't say anything on the onset, you're unaffiliated at that point. So the bill specifically was like, if an individual, and there are a lot of them that will not share what their party affiliation is at that time, is we're like, hey, why don't you just sit there and just put them down as pending? They sit it into, the voter registration system as pending. Then we sit there and wait for the voter to reach out and let us know what party they want to be associated with. I was absolutely in support. I felt there needed to be some amendments to the bill, but I was in support of it because right now what it looks like is government is picking the affiliation for many of our voters. And as your clerk and recorder, I have these discussions, and it's not partisan. I hear it from the Democrats and I hear it from the Republicans who are confused. And they're like, I never signed up as unaffiliated. Or if somebody renews their registration or their driver's license online and they just don't go through it, completely, they go from being a 30-year Republican or a registered Democrat to being unaffiliated, and they take offense to that because they hold a lot of pride of being, in that party for a number of years. But it's very confusing, and I just feel right now in the state of Colorado is government is picking the affiliation for a lot of our voters, and many of which, especially when you run an election and they get 2 ballots in an open primary system, they sit there and say, I never registered as unaffiliated. So you have to go through that process of education.
No, I appreciate that. I'm consistently think that the automatic registration is a bad idea, not because we don't want to encourage people to vote, but, if they have no intention of voting, and some people choose not to, and that is, up to them. We're still sending ballots. We're expending costs and, quite frankly, putting ballots out into the world that, someone could possibly decide to try something nefarious with. And I know that we have checks in place for signatures and all of those things. But again, it's an unnecessary risk that benefits no one. And it's just been a continual issue. So I think at least just having those conversations, with people, hey, do you know that we have automatic voter registration? Would you like to choose a party at this point? But they don't even know, especially these young kids.
Right.
They don't even know that they're being registered to vote, and oftentimes miss that little orange postcard that comes in the mail, to your point about no one pays attention to mail anymore. For certain, that is a generational shift. And so they don't even know that they are registered, as they were not told, and they do not know that they have an option to choose a party. And quite frankly, one of my sons came to me and said, but I'm not 18 yet. Like, oh, it's pre-registration. And so they just don't really explain at all. And it's a real opportunity to have a conversation, and explain what the system is here in Colorado. That's just totally being ignored. So I look forward, if you do end up taking on those initial licenses, that maybe we can do it a bit better than the state, which often seems to be the case.
Absolutely. Well, one more thing, though, Madam Chair, is there's a bill being heard this Thursday that I will be testifying on, and it's a great idea, and it's the opt-out bill. And what that means is a voter can opt out of receiving a mail-in ballot. And the reason why this idea came about is in 2024, we saw a record in-person voters showing up. And I think many of you probably saw at our VSPC's lines of several hundred individuals. And many of those voters, guess what they had tucked under their arm? Their mail-in ballot. And so what happens is when they sit there and they go into the VSPC, that mail-in ballot is canceled, it's shredded, and they are issued a new ballot. So that's cost. And there are many voters that I spoke to back in 2024 that are like, Steve, this is tradition. My grandpa taught me this. My dad taught me this, is we show up to the ballot box or to the VSPC in person as a family. And I saw a lot of families, they had their children with them and they were going in and, voting in person. But if you look at 33,000 in-person voters, many of which had their mail-in ballot tucked under their arm, our bipartisan judges shredded them and issued them a new ballot. That's a lot of money. So that is the bill that's going to be heard this Thursday at the Senate.
Great. Okay. Any final questions or comments? All right. Thank you so much
Thank
for
you,
your
Madam
time
Chair.
and sharing everything with us today.
Have a great day, guys.
Okay, we are now ready to, I'm just going to make sure we don't have any other countywides in the room, but I didn't see anybody. All right, ready to come up here to commissioners, starting with Commissioner Wysong.
Thank you, Madam Chair. A full week last week with a tour. Actually, wasn't a tour. It was participation in a Fort Carson partnership, which was held at the Air Force Academy, talking about the community. How do the communities support the military, and likewise, how does the military support the community and what they would like the community to, how they'd like to reciprocate. So it was a great day event. BPACG, the Water Quality Management group, we met with the URA, and in kind of a unique meeting, met with Verizon Mobile. This originated after a meeting last year with the FCC, where we're out at a NACO conference, and then another one just trying to build the mobile network primarily for alerting, peak alerts. If you don't have peak alerts, make sure you get it. But at the same time for evacuation planning purposes, alerting. If you get an overwhelmed mobile network, you're not going to get information. So they were looking and they were talking with us about opportunities. This was also with the city. So a lot of interesting things are potentially coming out with some of the mobile providers, but this one was primarily Verizon. Then also met with Senator Bennett's staff, one of their staff members, just building that rapport and what can we potentially, I guess, agree on. And one of them was, how are we going to address the issue that is confronting everyone on the Front Range here, the mountain pine beetle infestation. So by reaching out, one of their staffers is actually on the committee that the governor basically with an executive order signed in as a task force. So please stay tuned in for what are we going to do, and most importantly, how is the state going to fund this issue as it attacked the pine beetle infestation. This week, met with the city of Fountain for veteran collaboration opportunities. We have a Pikes Peak Rural Water Authority meeting tomorrow, Fountain Creek Watershed District, TAC, which is your technical action committee. And then also on Thursday, have a tour, hopefully, that is not canceled, of Fort Carson, which was canceled from November's during the closure of the government. So it's just a lot going on. And again, I get asked a lot, how's it going? And it's going very well. And I love being able to represent you, the people in El Paso County.
Vice Chair Nelson.
Good morning. Last week, the Board of Health, El Paso County Board of Health, met to review applicants for our executive director position, and we will be conducting interviews next week. This is probably one of the most important things that this board will do, is selecting leadership for our El Paso County Department of Public Health. And I think other than that, I don't have as much to report this week. It's a little bit slower as far as the different boards and committees that we serve on. next week and the following weeks are going to be very busy, but this one is a little bit slower. So I'll keep mine short this morning.
Commissioner Applegate.
Thank you. Yeah, this last weekend I was at the NACO conference, the legislative flyout to Washington, D.C. And some of the highlights of that trip, we dodged Snowmageddon. We only got about an inch on Sunday, so that was kind of good compared to New York City and what Rhode Island got. It was very informative. I got to sit in Saturday on some steering committee meetings. I'm one of the Colorado representatives for energy and workforce. We did a resolution to steer Congress towards creating an opportunity for more manufacturing jobs, because as early as, I think it was 2035, they said we could be 1 million short job-wise in the manufacturing area. So trying to get more kids, towards pushing them towards trade school, pushing them towards technical education, rather than just get a 4-year degree and sit in a call center all day. Saturday, later on in the week too, there was some good opportunities too. They did like an open forum for the federal agencies, and they came down. I actually got to talk to AmeriCorps and learn what they did. And then I found out NASA is doing a flight near the moon, and then they're going to be landing on the moon as early as next year. So that was very neat and very cool. Got to hear Robert Kennedy speak, and he had his best line was, "We're doing this for our children. We're doing this for our kids." He talked about how the diabetes numbers had spiked, how in the 50s and 60s they were in single digits, and now 38% of all children that come in for pediatric care are pre-diabetic or diabetic. And he said, there's no Republican children, there's no Democratic children, they're just our children. And it's our job to try to keep them healthy and protect them and be there and be good citizens. And so it was really good, a lot of the information he was bringing up, and his collaboration too as well with different military installations, and how soldiers actually weren't using some of the DFACs, they were going on fast food, and how he was kind of turning a corner with that and bringing the soldiers back to using the DFACs, back to getting good healthy meals in them. So they were seeing less sickness, they were seeing less injury among younger soldiers. Also, another little kind of tale, and I'm going to end on this. When I was walking around Sunday with one of my staff members, we walked up and we saw a protest going on in DC, and they were protesting what was going on in Iran, and the oppression and the tyranny, and basically the Iranian government slaughtering their own people. And they were asking us, we talked with them, it was Susanna and Jonathan were the individuals' names, and they said, please just pray that this regime ends, pray that there's peace, and pray that we can find an end to this conflict, and that this tyranny and this regime doesn't continue to slaughter their citizens. And I'm for the actions that Trump took, but I know we need to be cautious. We need these things with these geopolitical situations can be very, very difficult and very hard to navigate. So I'll continue to pray for that situation. I'll continue to pray for our soldiers, and let's hope we can find resolution with what all's gone on. So thank you.
Commissioner Williams.
Yes, I too went to NACO, came home a few days early, but I was able to attend our steering committee meetings, which was the transportation committee meeting. For me, we have a fantastic, at NACO, we now have a fantastic legislative staff person who mans that committee, an incredibly sharp young man. This year is the Surface Transportation Act reauthorization bill. It does have now bipartisan support, but I don't know in the world of politics if that means it's going to make it through by the end of the year. The congressman who heads up the committee, Congressman Graves, is a Republican congressman whose term limited out of his chairmanship at the end of the year, so he will probably want to push that through. That was held at the NACO headquarters, which was a fun visit to see that. And then we met as a Colorado delegation, and we always enjoy talking to commissioners from other counties. That was what we did at the NACO convention this week. I have a relatively light week. We do have the Statewide Transportation Advisory Committee on Thursday. We'll get a legislative update as to what CDOT is trying to pass in the state legislature, and also updates on what they do with that money. And that's, I think, I have other important meetings, but that's the one I wanted to highlight this week. Thank you.
Okay, as it was mentioned by Vice Chair Nelson, we both serve on the Board of Health, and we are doing lots of work there on our leadership search and other exciting things that are happening as well. I have the opportunity to be the liaison to a chronic disease group that staff is working on that is focusing on some use of a chronic disease grant that we're really excited about. This Board of Health is very interested in tackling chronic disease. Really excited about the work that's happening at the federal government in relationship to that. And so I was able to participate in my first meeting of that yesterday. It was really enlightening to see where our state is on that and what they are focused on. I'm glad that you brought up the concern around diabetes. That is one of the things that we are looking at. Had a meeting last week about a potential pilot program that Vice Chair Nelson and I both participated in to start to affect those who are pre-diabetic and helping them to change their lives so that they don't end up with diabetes. So it's really promising to see the work that's being done in the chronic disease space. This is such an impact to our community and our country as a whole. In addition to that, we also participated, both Vice Chair Nelson and I also are on the Opioid Council, so we both participated in that meeting last week. I'm really pleased with the new strategic direction that we are looking to take. We'll be spending a bunch of time focused on strategy and making sure those funds are spent appropriately. For those of you who are not aware, these are settlement dollars. These are not tax dollars, but settlement dollars from lawsuits regarding the overprescription of opioids and the epidemic that has resulted in that. So they are focused on addressing that crisis. And so again, really looking forward to the strategy sessions, especially next month, that we are really going to be spending time on. This has kind of been a building the plane while you're flying it kind of situation. It's a completely new board and program. And sometimes those things take time to develop. And so we are really going to be focused in on how to best spend the rest of that money. It's roughly $70 million over 18 years, so it's not forever money. And so we have to get really focused on what we can do in that time period and how we want to spread that money out or spend it more quickly up front or whatever the strategy is. So really looking forward to the work that is being done there. I will be participating this week. This week's a little lighter on those regular meetings. Some of the weeks of the month are really heavy, and then some of them are a bit lighter on those boards and committee meetings, and we all have a different schedule, so it's not the same for all of us. But mine is a little bit lighter this week, so I'll be focused in on doing some of the catch-up work of things that can't get done while I'm in meetings all day on those busy weeks. And this week, though, I do have two days that will be primarily consumed with CCI steering committee. So that's Thursday and Friday, where I will primarily spend the entire day with CCI, voting for positions that we will take in relationship to those bills coming through the state legislature. So those are two very busy days, and I have to work to prepare for that the beginning of this week as well, with the help of our fantastic government affairs staff that keeps us going, because reviewing this many bills, we'll probably vote on 40 bills on Thursday and Friday. And so being prepared to understand what all those bills are, discuss them intelligently, have a good position on them, and hopefully work with commissioners across the state to take positions that are important to us is quite a bit of work. So grateful to our government affairs team for making sure that I will be well prepared. And just in addition to that, I just want to touch briefly, grateful to my fellow commissioners who mentioned the current operations that are happening in Iran. And I know that this is such a tough topic for so many that, you know, there's some uncertainty, and I'm not immune to that uncertainty. Being a family that is still military, my husband is still serving in the reserves today, and knowing what toll that takes on our military families, it's always something that is not easy to see, especially as we see some losses. So my prayers are with those families and with all of our brave servicemen and women who are currently putting themselves in harm's way for all of us. I'm super grateful to that. I was very encouraged, spent some time watching the Secretary of War, Pete Hegseth, speak about the operations and what the intent is. And I have a great amount of respect and hope and trust in the folks that are guiding this operation. So there are some very key things said that I know my husband and I have talked about over the years because he did serve in Afghanistan, and what very long-term wars do to our military and our family and our country. But I was so encouraged to hear Pete Hegseth say, we won't have ridiculous rules of engagement. That was one of the top things that I feel like I heard our military family and friends talk about, is how tied the hands were of soldiers and how difficult it was for them to operate and do what they needed to do in Afghanistan. And so I'm just really optimistic that those things are being taken seriously now, and that our forces are going to be much better taken care of than sometimes they were in the past. I'll be praying for a speedy end to this, but also that we are able to accomplish our objectives to keep America safe and to make sure that we are putting an end to the terrorism that has been the hallmark of this Iranian regime. So with that, I think we are ready to move to item 7.
Item number 7 is community service organization reports, and there are none.
Item 8.
Item number 8 is public comment on items not scheduled on the agenda. And Madam Chair, I'm unaware of anyone signing in to speak today.
Okay, if you are here to speak on an item that is not on the agenda, please do head down to the podium. You can sign in and state your name for the record, and you'll have 3 minutes to speak.
It's cool you guys are all doing this. I should come more often, especially that clerk. That was awesome. What a great job he's doing. Holy cow. I was just amazed. I actually signed up for that where you can get the access property. It was like wonderful. And my name's Mark Spowert. So I'm here, one of the affected people on the 105 expansion. And I'm here because the company that you guys have hired to run this is using methods that I think are unfair, unfair and potentially illegal. They hire the same appraiser for all of these incidences. And he's known, his name's Chuck Nelson. He's known for very low estimates. In fact, one of the lawyers I talked to said his nickname was Low Buck Chuck. And what he's doing is, lowballing these appraisals. I'm familiar with 8 of them in our neighborhood. And in all 8, his appraisal has come in at 40 to 70% less than the appraiser from the homeowner. And, it's nuts. And in my case, I've got 126 trees that the county's going to take out. And our appraiser hired a tree expert, and his appraisal came in at a $225,000 value. And my appraiser actually lowered it down to 111 because he's very conservative. And Mr. Nelson's was at 0 for that. Now, another element with this eminent domain stuff is what's called severance damages. So what they do is you look at the property after the project and you assess what are the residual damages to it. I get the clicker here. And in my case, the residual damage that our appraiser came in at was $68,000. And Mr. Nelson was at 0. So this is a show without the trees and with the trees. And you can see now I have a beautiful view of the roundabout. No forest look, no barrier between me for sound or visual. Also, if you look at the next page here, this is an aerial view of what the difference between now and what it'll look like. So you can see they're taking over half of our trees from our property. They're also expanding furrows, so it's now closer to our house. And that's going to require them to put up a retaining wall all along the west side of our property. So now we've got a view of a chain link fence. Any people that want to look at buying our house, because we had it on the market, are going to see this industrial look. In fact, our real estate agents that all I need is a tower and some barbed wire to complete the look. So it's just for him to come back and say there's no residual damage is crazy. Now, these are the sheets that you guys already approved, I guess. And if you look at each one of these settlements, you'll see a line that says administrative settlement. Whenever you see that, that means that Mr. Nelson's appraisal was low. And now TRS is using that lowball appraisal to now negotiate with the homeowner and getting settlements that are somewhere in between. So every time you look at one of those and you see that settlement, that means that his appraisal was low. And my guess is every one of the ones you approved today are going to have that administrative settlement. So my wish is that you guys will look at this, make your own assessment of it. But if I'm right, I'd like you to prohibit TRS for using this, what I think is unfair.
Thank you, sir.
Don't you want to ask me a bunch of questions? Thank you.
If you could direct this to our clerk to the board. And again, please do sign in and state your name for the record. You will have 3 minutes.
That in a second. My name is Corey Sutella. I'm the Executive Director of Medicine Wheel Trail Advocates. We are a nonprofit trail organization operating in our region since 1991. And Chair Geithner and Commissioner Williams, you'll remember, I'm sure, some of our work on the Jones Park property. Some staff might remember that also. Really grateful for, first of all, your service to our community and your leadership. And also we're grateful as an organization for our really strong partnership with El Paso County Parks staff. And I won't go into detail about that, but I'm sure Commissioner Weissong could illuminate some of that. We're often at the Parks Board. I wanted to speak to you today about a state House bill that I testified on last week. It's State House Bill 1008. It's the Colorado Outdoor Opportunities Act. And Chair Geithner, I'm glad you mentioned CCI. CCI has taken a position of amend on this bill, and I wanted to talk a little bit about why we think this is an important bill for the future of our state and for our region. So the Colorado Outdoor Opportunities Act would give CPW a greater mandate as well as greater resources to manage recreation in Colorado. And I want to be clear, this is not a bill to greatly expand recreation in Colorado. But you will hear me talking about, how can we make our recreation better? But that's not what this bill does. What this bill does is it recognizes that in the state of Colorado, 36% of our public lands are managed by federal agencies, and these agencies do not have the resources to manage them properly. We've got this wonderful resource, which is the outdoors, which is why I moved here 20 years ago. Why a lot of people move here and why we love being in Colorado is access to the outdoors. And if we don't manage it properly, recreation is going to have negative impacts on this resource. So for our children and for the future of the state, we need a better way to manage this. I'm super pleased that Colorado has come up with a fairly forward-thinking, it's called the Colorado Outdoor Strategy, that looks to not just balance recreation and conservation, but to bring both of those up together. They've also invested in the Regional Partnerships Initiative, and I think hopefully you guys are aware of locally we've got the Outdoor Pikes Peak Initiative, or OPI. That is a really great way that as a region we can set our priorities for how we're going to manage recreation so that it supports conservation and how we can recognize the value of conservation to improved recreation. Colorado House Bill 1008 will take money from the Keep Colorado Wild Pass. It's the money that was promised to citizens that this is what it would be used for, and would use that money to provide staffing that would increase the management, would essentially create positions within CPW. Today we have area wildlife managers. This would create area recreation managers and give CPW a greater authority to properly manage this wonderful resource we have. So thank you for your consideration of that. And when you're speaking with CCI, I hope you can push forward why it's important for our county. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Okay, is there anyone else who wishes to speak on an item that is not on the agenda today? Okay, seeing none, we will move to item 9.
Item number 9 is the called up consent calendar, and there are no items called up today.
Item 10.
Item number 10 is the resolution to reappropriate 2025 contracts, projects, and purchase orders from various fund balances and to recognize revenue to the 2026 budget. Nikki Simmons, Chief Financial Officer.
Good morning, Commissioners. Nikki Simmons, Chief Financial Officer. Here this morning to request approval for our annual budget process for our reappropriations. This is actually one of my favorite parts of our budget process, where we continue funding for projects in process as of the end of the prior year to allow for those projects to continue into the next year. We are asking for approval for $102,963,000 worth of funding that was identified to specific projects as of the end of 2025 to roll forward into 2026. I'm going to give an example of a couple of the larger amounts that are in the backup. There was a very detailed list in your backup. A significant amount of these funds are already on purchase orders to specific vendors. There is the remaining ARPA funding in there, as well as the remaining NRCS funding for the flooding from a couple of years ago. We have several $1 million worth of stormwater projects that are in process. Another example of something that's in here is $800,000 towards the Fox Run renovation project, and that is in addition to funding that was made available in the 2026 budget. The enterprise resource planning software upgrade that we have been working on for a couple of years, which will continue for a couple of more years. That funding has all been identified within the budget, so we won't see additional budget requests for it, but this funding will, as the project spends down over the next couple of years, that funding will continue to roll forward. In here is some funding for the Pikes Peak Communications Radio Network upgrade, a major capital upgrade to the radio communication network used for all law enforcement across our community. Some major IT projects such as our Active Directory redesign and some cybersecurity measures. Multimodal operation funding, so some road projects totaling $14 million is part of this $102 million or $104 million. Are there any questions about this process or anything I can answer for you this morning?
Vice Chair Nelson.
I'll just make a comment that this process is a very transparent way to show our citizens all of the planning that has taken place over years. And projects don't get completed in a year necessarily. And so this is a mechanism to show the funding that has been saved to use towards certain projects that we know are still coming and will take time over the years. And so we're just demonstrating how it will be spent. And I love budgets and learning more about the work that is happening in the county. And so I just wanted to give a shout out to the transparency that this process allows for our community to understand when we know that such as a new ERP is a major overhaul to a system and going to take quite a bit of time and funding, that previous boards were intentional in setting aside money to do so and without going back to the taxpayers to ask for more money. And so it's very intentional, and just really proud of the work that's been happening in the county and think that it should be recognized that they're being very good stewards of those tax dollars. It's nice work.
Thank you.
Commissioner Williams.
My only comment is I do enjoy this day as well because we don't have a policy at El Paso County that you have to spend your budget down at the end of the year. And so there's not a December spend down, or as the state government would do, a June spend down, because if you don't spend it, you lose it. So we have if you don't spend it, we give it back to you, and on many things. And so we encourage our department heads to work together, to spend wisely, and to save up for these big projects that benefit all of the departments as a whole. And I really appreciate that we're doing that between you and our County Administrator Waters, so that our department heads know that that's really important to us. And we like to reward conservative budgeting around here. So thank you.
I'm just going to add my thanks as well for all the great work that's done on budgeting, as I hear more and more about the woes that the state is in and other local governments here, the mistakes that they've made. I'm really grateful for the leadership, past and present, on this board, as well as the tremendous leadership of our staff, in particular our county administrator and also Ms. Simmons. So with that, I'm going to ask if there is a motion on this resolution.
So moved.
Second.
All right, moved and seconded. One last opportunity for any questions or comments. And we'll begin the vote with Commissioner Weissong,
Aye.
Vice Chair Nelson,
Aye.
Commissioner Applegate,
Aye.
Commissioner Williams,
Aye.
and the chair votes aye. That passes 5-0.
Thank you, commissioners.
And before we move on to the next item, we're going to take a brief comfort break. So just a few minutes, 5 to 10 minutes, and we will be back to our next item. I'm going to call this meeting back to order, and we are on item 11.
Item number 11 is the hearing on the application by Salsa LLC doing business as Rush Cafe for a hotel and restaurant liquor license on the premises located at 39810 Highway 94, El Paso County, Commissioner District 2, continued from February 17th, 2026. Jackie Allred, Clerk to the Board Manager. And Madam Chair, with your permission, I'll just state some facts for the record.
Please.
The applicant has fulfilled all the state and local requirements. No opposition has been voiced against the issuance of the requested license to date, and the sheriff's investigation revealed no criminal history relevant to the issuance of the liquor license. The applicant does not qualify for an abbreviated hearing today due to the neighborhood survey results, but Liquor Pros is here to present on that today. And at this time, I'll turn it over to Terry Sample from the County Attorney's Office to proceed with the hearing.
Ms. Sample.
Good morning, Madam Chair. Terry Sample with the El Paso County Attorney's Office. Thank you, Board, for having this hearing scheduled today. As Ms. Allred already stated, El Paso County Sheriff's Office, nor BNI, found any concerns regarding this applicant or stated any objection. I think at this point in time, the focus would be the needs and desires. El Paso County Beer and Liquor Policy under section Roman numeral 5B3E 1 and 2. I could also have it posted.
Yes, if you could have it displayed, that'd be great.
The first one is the needs, and number 2 is the desires. And I can draw your attention a little bit more to this after we hear from the applicant and their counsel. I will state I have asked every individual here in the auditorium, none of them are here in person, to object to item number 11. At this point in time, I will turn it over to counsel and the
And before we proceed, I'm going to turn it over to our county attorney to do the swearing in.
Thank you, Madam Chair. As we discussed on break, our liquor policy does have a requirement that folks who are going to testify before the board today be sworn in. With your permission, I could swear in anybody who's going to speak to the board today.
Yes, so all those that are here, go ahead and have you raise your right hand and the county attorney will proceed.
Thank you, ma'am. Do you swear to tell the whole, let me start over. Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you, Madam Chair. These witnesses may proceed.
Okay, thank you.
Morning, Commissioners. My name is Vince Linden. I am an attorney here in Colorado. Copy of this liquor license applicant. Present with me is Blanca Rejeda. Very rural location. I was just recently hired, so forgive me if I'm muddling through.
Could you, I'm sorry to interrupt you, but yeah, if you could make sure you're speaking into the mic so that everyone can hear you well. Thank you.
Sure. My wife usually tells me to keep my voice down, Commissioner. I apologize. I'm going to muddle through this a little bit because I've just been recently engaged and just looked at this for the very first time at about 11 o'clock last night. But we'll get through the presentation. Unless, on the off chance that we didn't hear my voice, I am Vince Linden. I am a licensed attorney. I'm present with the applicant. On behalf of the applicant is Blanca Rejeda. She's standing to my left. Liquor Licensing Professionals, I'm sure you're aware of, is a professional survey company for liquor license applicants, and they are represented here by Eva Gerritsen. I'm going to start first briefly with Blanca, if that's okay to call you that, and ask you a couple questions for the board, okay? Ms. Grajeda, am I pronouncing your last name correctly?
Grajeda.
Grajeda. How long have you lived in Colorado Springs?
26 years.
And are you a United States citizen?
I'm a citizen, sir.
What has been your work history prior to operating Rush Cafe?
Well, I worked for McDonald's as a manager chef for 13 years. Then I've been working on Penrose Hospital for 12 as a cook.
So is it fair to say for approximately the last 25 years, you worked 13 as a manager at McDonald's and 12 years as a cook at a hospital?
Yes, sir.
And so do you feel like you have the ability to operate
Yeah.
a small cafe?
Totally.
And you've been doing so for approximately how long at this location?
8 months already.
8 months.
Mm-hmm.
And what type of food do you sell at Rush Cafe?
Primary Mexican food.
What are your hours of operation?
8 to 8 right now.
Are you working there every day?
Most of them, yeah.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Who are your general patrons? Can you describe where your patrons come from generally?
Our customers there?
Yes.
You're saying? Yeah. Well, we have, it's variable. Most of them are from surrounding areas from Rush, like Rush, Calhoun, Peyton, Ellicott, and Yoder.
You've operated the Rush Cafe for approximately 8 months, correct?
Yes, sir.
And you showed me an email that you have on your phone from the prior operator. Is that right?
Yes, sir.
And she operated it from, refresh my recollection, how long has it been that she operated it with her husband?
Well, that place was first opened, I think, in 1960. And then she is, her name is Sherry. I can't remember her last name, but she bought that from the first owner, who was her uncle. Then she owned that place for, I think, 20 years.
According to the email that you just showed me, her uncle started it in 1960,
Mm-hmm.
and then she purchased it and she operated it for approximately 25 or 30
Mm-hmm.
years.
Something like that.
And Ms. Allred, I think I spoke to Ms. Allred, if I may proffer, Mr. Hodges. I spoke to Ms. Allred before the hearing, and she looked at the county records, and it indicated that there was a liquor license at the location through 2018. And the earliest indication, at least in her records, was that it had been there since at least 2003. So we're not sure when the liquor license existed there, but from the county's own records, we can establish that it was there from 2003 through 2000. Ms. Grajeda, you have asked patrons that frequent your establishment whether or not they would be in favor of issuing a liquor license at the location.
Yeah.
And you conducted an in-store survey and asked patrons whether they would sign in favor or against.
Yeah, if they want to, yeah. I mean, we do.
Do you get a lot of requests from patrons for liquor?
Many of them, yeah.
You turned in your in-store petition or sample survey to Ms. Allred at the clerk's office.
Mm-hmm.
And many of those signatures, if we looked at them, are from residents of Rush, Colorado, correct?
Yeah, some of them, but most of them are from surrounding areas.
Like Calhoun.
Calhoun and Yoder, all the, Peyton and Ellicott.
But the persons that signed, approximately how many signatures or patrons signed inside the restaurant?
Can't remember. There were many. I don't know. I have signatures over here. And I already gave Ms. Allred some of them.
Madam Chair, if I can add for the record, it was approximately 66 signatures, Mr. Linden, and that's included in the board's confidential packet that we sent to them. So approximately 66.
There's a confidential super secret packet. Thank you so much, Ms. Allred. I appreciate that.
Right now, it's like...
So Ms. Allred counted for us, and she said 66.
Oh.
Several are from Rush. Like if we look at the first page, that when you showed this to me this morning, there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5,
There's 22 total.
22 from Rush. But they're not, those 22 patrons, while they live in the community of Rush, don't live within 1 mile of your business, right?
Yeah, it's because Rush is like kind of complicated to have many people around the restaurant because it's like you own your house like 3 miles away, and then the next person is 7 miles away, and the other person is like 15 miles away. They're not close. It's like a farms that they own, like a miles away from between each other. The only people that they live like next to them is the main street, which is like around 5 houses on the left side of a restaurant, and like 3 mobile homes on the right, which I think only 2 is family living there, but no more than that. Behind the restaurant is another lady, Norma, that she's agreed with them. And then that's it.
Okay, so literally if we pulled up Rush, Colorado on Google Maps and looked down on it, there's only 6 or 7 residences within 1 mile of your
It could
business.
be, yeah.
Is that fair?
I guess, yeah, because there's not many families around.
If you're fortunate enough to be issued a liquor license by this local authority and then hopefully by the state of Colorado as well, would you stipulate that since you haven't worked since McDonald's and the hospital presumably didn't sell alcohol, would you and your employees stipulate to attend a certified training program to be conducted by liquor licensing professionals?
Definitely, yeah.
And you're asking for a license type called a hotel restaurant license type, correct? Not a tavern or bar type license.
No.
And this is just to be able to complement beverages for people who ask for a glass of beer or a glass of wine with their meal.
That's what it is.
I'll make Ms. Grajada available for questions, but if I may proceed to the next witness at this time, and before closing, you can ask any witness a question. Ms. Gerritsen?
Yes. For the record, good morning, Madam Chair, Madam Vice Chair, County Commissioners. For the record, my name is Eva Gerritsen. Last name is Garretson. I am one of the owners of Liquor Licensing Professionals doing business as Liquor Pros. We are located at 5515 Saddle Rock Place here in Colorado Springs, Colorado. We are a third-party petitioning company that conducts needs and desires surveys for liquor, marijuana, and cabaret licenses throughout the entire state of Colorado. We are also listed under Liquor Enforcement Division as a Colorado Responsible Vendor Trainer for the state of Colorado. And we also do liquor license measurements for retail liquor stores, fermented malt beverage, and wine.
Did you conduct a neighborhood survey of the defined neighborhood boundaries as determined by El Paso County?
I did. I did this particular survey myself. Given the delicacy of this one, I wanted to make sure that it was done correctly, so I actually went and did this particular survey myself. I contacted Jackie, which I agree with the clerk. It is wonderful to work with people that know what they're doing, so I do want to commend her. We've worked in over 125 different jurisdictions in the state of Colorado. Always helpful when they know what they're doing. So I do want to give her a shout out right now. But yes, I did conduct this myself. I went out on the dates, worked with Jackie to make sure we got the correct map. We did have an issue with the first map. She got that corrected for us. And the resident unit count inside stated that there was 23. When I get out there, there is Rush, it's divided up there on Highway 94, and it is split in by Rush Road. So there is a quadrants basically in there. Blanca actually states the Rush Cafe actually is located on the northeast side of that corner. On the southeast side is a U.S. Postal Service, and then there's a pantry, which is one of the only open working businesses other than Rush Cafe. There was a church a couple doors down. That is no longer in use right now. And then there's the fire department a couple doors up, but that's volunteer. So whenever folks show up over there. Anything else like that, I did conduct this particular survey on the dates of Saturday, February 21st, and Sunday, February 22nd. The reason I did the weekend is because I did want to try and catch the residents there at home, because during the week, everybody leaves. So there wasn't a whole lot of folks in there. Made attempted contact with 27 business owners, managers, and residents, and obtained a total of 8 signatures. One was from a business owner, which she stated she didn't want to say no, but she didn't want to say yes because she wanted to make sure that she didn't upset some people in the community, was the words that she verbalized to me. So in that case, she didn't want her to not have the license, but so she stated to remain unbiased and put no opinion in there. We then went to the neighbors in closest, and as you can tell from the survey packet of the residential, we had 7 folks that signed the petition. The first one was these are 2 trailers that are right behind the Rush Hotel or the Rush Cafe, and 2 of them actually live in the same 2 of them live in the same trailer, and both of them signed no. And then Miss Yvonne Fontaine and her partner, which is stated on line number 6, Mr. Doug, they actually live one more door to the east of that, and both of them signed in opposition of that one. I did find Martin Howard, located at 1480 North Johnson Road. He was all in favor of this. He said he frequents the restaurant often, and given the fact that it is Mexican food, he would like a beer or wine with his dinner. And then the last one is Miss Norma Jenkins. Miss Norma was fabulous. She lives right behind the Rush Cafe. She is a widow of an Air Force Academy service member. And so she remains in that area. They're originally from Yoder. They moved back to Yoder because they Rush, because they like the area. And so she lives right behind there. And she stated that she was in full support of this, that she would like a margarita with her, her meals. At 89 years old, she was fabulous. I'm sorry. I had to say that. She is just amazing. So given the unique situation of this, I have been in over 4,350 surveys and just as many hearings. And with this, the fact that there is no other license type in the area, there is a school down to the south. It is, the distance requirement is valid and satisfies the state distance requirement of that. But there is no other license type in here, which that alone actually shows a need and desire. And that has been proven in many other hearings that I've been in. The fact that there's no other liquor license in the area, and there's a need for this one. And the fact that Miss Norma Jenkins and Mr. Howard are in favor of this also shows a support and a need. And a desire for this license. So even though if we look at the percentages, which if we combine all our percentages, it has 29% signing in favor and 71% opposed at 5. Given the area and the fact of the demographic of the area, it is a tiny area. I don't feel like there was enough sufficient evidence to prove it, that enough feedback there could have been more feedback, I guess, in order to show the county commissioners that there is more of a desire and need. I guess we could have expanded that out given the fact that Rush community is spread out over quite a bit of area. But right now, It's my professional opinion that the fact that there is no other license in this area, and there are 2 people that have a need and desire for this license in the area, I feel that this is my professional opinion that this license be issued. And I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Commissioner Williams.
Well, my question may be directed more to Mr. Hodges, or my question is, so our requirements require the survey in a 1-mile circle around this?
Commissioner Williams, the board, typically if it's rural, we require a 1-mile area. If it's not, then it's 0.5 miles. So we extended this one out due to the rural area.
So in looking at the map, you maybe only had about 20 properties that qualified.
And that's correct, Commissioner. And several of those properties have gates. And so we respect the privacy. I mean, you move out there for a reason, right? You want that privacy. So one of the other gentlemen that I was trying to get, he was working cows. I sat at the front gate. I drove in. I honked the horn a couple of times. I got a couple of waves. He was really nice, but I couldn't get him to come over to the gate to answer. But yeah, there was a few of these. And a couple of properties out there are abandoned. There's a house on there, but there's nobody living there. So that was another.
Okay. Thank you.
Could you give us the raw numbers again? The percentages can seem a bit
Yes. So
difficult when you have such a small number. So just the raw numbers, please.
that's the hard part. Yes, Chair. Thank you. So we had 2 signing in favor at 25%, 5 opposed at 63%, and 1 with no opinion at 12%.
And did those who signed no give any reason?
Yes, they did. So Miss Yvonne and like I said, I actually had extensive conversations with them. Samuel Beckman and Etriu Reed, Mr. Reed, they lived in the trailer right behind. But when I got their signature, they were already at Miss Yvonne Fontaine's residence. So they were actually neighbors of theirs, close neighbors of theirs. Eat there all the time, I guess, and visit with those folks quite often. Miss Yvonne and Miss Doug actually stated that there was a car accident that happened out there on the intersection. So I did inquire as to was it because of the restaurant or alcohol, if they had any knowledge, and they said they had no idea, but there was a rollover accident. So their concern was safety because of traffic. A lot of the cars that drive back and forth going through there. Not so much the alcohol, and then she stated she did not drink. That in itself says that she can't have a need or desire, can't even speak on a need and desire. They all declined to write a reason for that, but I did have conversations with them in respect to that, because I did want to make sure that I understood why they were opposed to this license. So I think their concerns were more about the safety of the area. Mr. Randy Thompson? Randall Thomas. Mr. Thomas is the pastor in the area. And so he says he has grandchildren that are out there. He just wants more for their safety. He is an ex-police officer. And so he said he's seen a lot of bad things with alcohol. And I said, so he did want to hesitate at first because he wanted the conversation with Blanca as to how she was going to serve it, why she wanted to serve it. He wanted to entertain the conversation. I believe they talked and had the conversation after that. He still felt that he didn't want that liquor license in that area.
Okay, any additional questions from commissioners this time? Vice Chair Nelson?
I just want to ask again and repeat that you will train your staff on serving should this permit be approved, and best practices to identify when someone has had too much and should be cut off. And can you just speak a little bit to that?
Yes, ma'am.
Great.
We will.
Okay.
You know, we have, my company has to follow the rules and standards under the Colorado Liquor Code. There are specific requirements, including IDing, visible intoxication, forms of IDs that they can check, when to cut off somebody, when to offer a ride, all of that information, and set company policy along with their employees so that it helps protect not just the business, but the employee as well and the business owner. So we do develop a company policy around that as well.
Okay, so you're also going to be helping support along this process into the future, not just providing the survey data, but you're going to help the applicant to put in the protocols and systems.
If the license was approved,
Sure.
I did offer that. I did offer that, sure, yes.
Okay,
Listed under there as well, so.
okay, thank you.
I follow up a question, Madam Vice Chair. Ms. Gerritsen, your company, to my understanding, there's only 3 or 4 companies that are certified by the state of Colorado. 3 or 4
Correct.
companies in the entire state of Colorado that are certified to conduct liquor training programs. Is that right?
That is correct. We've been busy. So Liquor Enforcement Division currently has ramped up their sting operations. And so we've had many have failed sting operations lately. We've done so many in the whole entire state. King Supers, we've done probably about 8 locations right now because of failed sting operations, which means we have to go in and retrain every single one of their staff to make sure that they're serving responsibly, understand the laws with regards to third-party sales, takeout, delivery, all of that fun stuff. So yes, we do this all over the state.
You're the reason with my gray hair and beard that I still get carded. Okay.
And most folks nowadays, it used to be more acceptable to take a vertical ID. Most businesses now are just declining a vertical ID. Between fake ID websites and these fake IDs actually scan in the state of Colorado. I went ahead and got myself one. I made myself 65 so I could try and ride up to Cripple Creek with the seniors on the bus for free. It worked like a charm. So it was yeah, but these are very, very good fake IDs. So helping protect these folks, any vendor in the state with this is very important right now. In fact, a couple of jurisdictions are now saying with fake IDs that if you get 2 of them turned in, you are now charged with fraud. So Boulder has this as well because we're a college state, we're a military state. We have so many younger people, we have everybody moving in, and what was okay in your state may not be okay over here. So we reiterate that with them.
But really the point I wanted to make is that they do formal training sessions. They're 3.5-hour sessions. You have to pass a test. And they're certified by the state to conduct those training sessions. So it's not, I don't have that certification. I haven't done 4,300 licenses, but I've done 300 or 400 in my life, probably significantly more than that. And I don't have the certification. So they train corporations, national type companies, and they're certainly qualified to train at Rush Cafe. And I would like to point out that one thing that Ms. Gerritsen said, that one person indicated that they abstained from alcohol. I made a joke. I haven't abstained from alcohol my whole life, but I have in recent years. And that would disqualify me from participating in the survey. My opinion doesn't matter because if I don't take the opportunity to have a glass of wine or an alcoholic beverage, if I have chosen voluntarily to abstain from alcohol, then my opinion as to the needs or desires doesn't matter. So please take that into consideration too, that we should really move down one of those no votes because that person doesn't make them a good or bad person. It just means that under the law, their opinion doesn't weigh with regards to needs and desires. And then I also want to make a record, if I could briefly, before we close the proceedings. Your jurisdiction requires the applicant to work with the clerk's office to send out notifications to the vacant landowners. So this, I don't know if you've ever been to Rush. I can't remember being there myself, to be honest. So when I was looking at it on Google Maps last night, it's my testimony that there's only a handful of residents right next to the location. And then from there, you have to go 17 miles to the next nearest available liquor outlet. And so the procedure works 90% of the time, but in this instance, maybe not, because even though the clerk's office expanded the radius from half a mile to a mile, we're still not catching anybody. There's nobody to catch to get their opinion. And one interesting thing that didn't occur was in talking to Ms. Grajada this morning. I talked to her about how she purchased the business, and the prior owners own the building. There's two of them. And I don't speak Spanish, but I said, well, are they in favor or against issuance of the license? And she said, well, of course they're in favor. And I said, well, could you call them? And she did. And I asked them to stay on standby if you wanted to verify my proffer testimony to you, which is there should be 2 additional yes votes in the survey. And those would be the 2 owners of the building, her landlords. So she should really have been at 4. And then we take the 1 for sure from Ms. Garrettson's testimony that abstains from drinking. So it really should be 4-4 as far as the neighborhood inhabitants that actually live within the defined boundaries. Then we also have 6 returned statements from vacant landowners that are sent with the county information at the top that said they are in favor. And I don't know what weight you want to give those. You don't have to give those the same weight as a resident, but I think that the fact that the county takes it upon itself to ensure that the applicant notifies vacant landowners gives the vacant landowners an opportunity to be heard. And 6 of them took advantage of that opportunity and voted yes. And I understand no no's.
Mr. Linden, just to be clear, we did receive 7 total back that were in favor, vacant landowners, and 1 that had no opinion.
7 in favor, 1 no opinion. Please give that some weight, because that's something that not every jurisdiction does. You do. And I think that it's worthwhile that you undertake that effort to give the people an opportunity that may not be there. And please consider them as well. As your attorney indicated to you at the commencement of this proceeding, under CRS 43.3.301 and 43.3.12, the board, you must consider the reasonable requirements of the neighborhood, the desires of the adult inhabitants, and the number, type, and availability of existing outlets. Colorado courts have repeatedly emphasized that this is a fact-based inquiry. You have a lot of discretion in determining these decisions. The board is not deciding whether alcohol is good or bad in principle. The legislature has already made that policy determination. The board's task is to determine whether this particular application satisfies the neighborhood needs and inhabitant desires under the statute. This obviously is a very rural agricultural community. In fact, in looking at the packet, I noticed that this property is zoned agricultural. The nearest comparable on-premise restaurant license is approximately 16 miles away. The nearest similar outlet is over 17 miles away. There is no comparable license within the defined neighborhood boundary. The application is for a hotel restaurant license, not a tavern, not a retail liquor store. Alcohol must be served in conjunction with food service and consumed on the premises. It is incidental to the restaurant operation. There is no evidence of outlet saturation. As was testified to you by your own attorney, there are no prior denials within 500 feet in the past 2 years. The sheriff's office investigation revealed no disqualifying criminal history or law enforcement concerns. The Colorado Supreme Court precedent has upheld the issuance of licenses in rural areas where there are no comparable outlets existing within the broad geographical area. And I would argue to you that while you confined it to 1 mile radius, we could have confined it to 15-mile radius and still found none. So just to get back to the survey, of the 23 residential units within the defined boundary, 6 were not qualified to sign. That left 17 qualified residential inhabitants. Of those 17, 5 were opposed, 2 supported, 10 were not able to be contacted. No opinion votes in residential, 1 no opinion vote in business. And then we add the 7 vacant landowners. We remove by law 1 of the no votes. We hopefully And we can call them and have them testify by telephone if that's okay, but we have 2 additional yes votes, being the landlords. And you can give evidence to the petition survey she conducted in the restaurant itself. You don't have to, and maybe probably shouldn't, give that equal evidence as a inhabitant signature, but you can consider that as evidence towards the needs and desires of this location. And so I would argue to you or submit to you, please do so in considering that the 66 votes that Ms. Allred said were favorable and but were taken with inside the restaurant. I would simply argue to you, and I'll make this short, but I'm trying to make a record, that the other 2 concerns that Ms. Garrettson testified to are traffic and safety concerns. These are considered speculative testimony, speculative concerns. And Colorado courts have held that speculative testimony about what might occur if a license is granted is entitled to no weight. Traffic and safety concerns can be relevant if supported by concrete evidence of existing problems or documented impacts, but speculation about possible future issues cannot justify denial. And I would submit to you that there has been no evidence presented of documented congestion, accident data, law enforcement objections, or concrete specific safety impacts tied to this premises. So to conclude, I think that if you take the whole basket of evidence that's been submitted and what's before you, you have sufficient grounds, legally sufficient grounds that would not be overturned by an appellate court should you decide to grant this license. And I would argue that the evidence, in fact, weighs in favor of granting the license. If you have any further questions of myself or my client or Ms. Garrettson, we'd be happy to answer them.
Commissioner Weishaupt.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Counselor, you brought up the landlords. Were they not within the mile radius and they weren't surveyed?
I don't know where they live, but they own the building. So you would see on the survey packet, residential and business. So you can sign within the defined neighborhood boundary if you're a manager or owner of a business within the defined boundary. And so they therefore qualify owning that property. They just weren't surveyed. So I just realized that this morning, like, who are the landlords? Are they on here? Did they sign your in-house petition? Did they sign the formal petition? No, they didn't. Well, what's their position? Well, their position is they're in favor. Well, they should have been on the survey packet. And they're not here to testify live for you, but I'm telling you that by all indications, it seemed like they were very much in favor, and we could call them if you wanted to determine that. And there would be 2 of them, husband and wife.
On the vacant responses, they're all within the mile radius also, correct?
I would defer to Ms. Allred.
That's correct.
Okay. I'm good, thank you.
Any other questions at this time? Okay. Ms. Sample, do you have more to add?
Just quickly, Madam Chair, if I may, I wanted to highlight section E1, a couple of sentences for your consideration and the commissioner's consideration. The primary factor is whether the needs of the neighborhood with respect to the type of beverage proposed to being sold are being met by existing licenses and signatures by residents of the affected neighborhood on petition for or against the application represent some evidence of the requirements of the neighborhood, although the number of persons signing is not determinative of the issue. And E2, regarding the desires, a majority of the people in the locality is not required to favor issuance of the license And the number of persons signing for or against a license is not wholly determinative of the desires of the inhabitants.
Thank you. Okay, so with that, I believe we are ready to bring it up here for comments deliberation from commissioners. If there's no objection, because this is in my district, I'd like to kick off some of those comments. And thank you to Ms. Sample for reading through some of that criteria that to guide us in this process. I really appreciate all of the evidence and putting all of those things on the record. This is my district. I'm familiar with this area, and so I can absolutely understand the difficulty in trying to find folks. I found the story of a man working in his field, waving, very typical. I've done a lot of door knocking and run into a lot of those fences at times trying to meet with constituents. And so I do understand exactly what you are referring to in these situations. A lot of times what I find from, folks who are waving, they're friendly, but they're kind of live and let live, and they're living their lives, and they'd like for you to just, live yours as well. So to me, it's not indicative of a desire to not support something like this. I think, we have a lot of latitude within this, and the arguments are well made, that to me, the needs and desires are clearly there for the community. I appreciate you adding the additional information about the owners. That is significant. And also pointing out that at least one of those folks, and from the testimony, I would say maybe more than one of those folks are maybe just opposed to alcohol in general. And so to me, and they have that right, but that's not what we're determining, this based on. So to me, it's very clear that there is a needs and desire, especially factoring in all of those pieces. Also, the petition that was submitted for those who are patrons of the restaurant, that they'd like to have that. And Miss Norma, we can't forget Miss Norma wanting to have her margarita. So to me, I do think that the evidence has met that burden, that there is a need and desire in this community, that especially with the huge distance that there is without any other service like this in the area. So just for the benefit of my fellow commissioners, I'll let someone else make a motion, but because it is my district, I did want to state that I do think it has met the criteria very clearly for this license, and I am in support.
Unless there are any comments, I am in support of this license. So I would state that I find that our backup materials support that the applicant is not a person prohibited as a licensee. Zoning and building codes have been complied with, and the distance requirements have been met. As to the needs and desires of the neighborhood, I find that the absence of similar licenses in the area indicates the need and desire for a hotel and restaurant liquor license at this location. Therefore, I move for approval of this item.
Second.
Okay, that's been moved and seconded. One last opportunity for any comments. Seeing none, we'll call the roll, beginning with Commissioner Weisong.
Aye.
Vice Chair Nelson.
Aye.
Commissioner Applegate.
Aye.
Commissioner Williams.
Aye.
And the chair votes aye. That passes 5-0. Congratulations.
Thank you so much.
Okay, item 12.
Item number 12 is department and committee reports, non-action items. 12A, quarterly sales and use tax report 2025, quarter 4, October, November, and December. Nikki Simmons, Chief Financial Officer.
Good morning again, Commissioners. Nikki Simmons, Chief Financial Officer. Here for this item to show the final activity for 2025 for sales and use tax collections. As I state, and every time I do one of these reports, this is the consumer activity for the month of December 2025, which then retailers remit to the Department of Revenue on our behalf during January 2025. So we received this tax in the middle of February. So this is the most current information that we have, and want to show you how we ended the year. The retail activity, again, which is collected through the Department of Revenue, was up 1.34% for the year, just shy of 5% for December over December of 2025. This is very similar to the economic reports that I've been seeing for how retail spending happened. In December, a strong holiday retail shopping season, so up 5% for that month, and one of our stronger months for the year compared to 2024. When you look at use tax on automobiles, that is one portion of automobile sales tax. This is simply the portion that is collected through the clerk and recorder's office. So these would be vehicles that are the county tax was not collected at time of sale. So there's two ways that we collect sales tax on vehicles. One is if you buy it from a local dealership. So would you say a dealership down in Motor City or up north on Nevada? Nevada, I was thinking Woodman. But Nevada has a couple now as well. You pay, within the city limits, you would pay city sales tax, county sales tax, state sales tax. But if you bought that same vehicle from a dealership in, say, the Denver metro area, they can't collect City of Colorado Springs or El Paso County tax, so they would only collect the state portion of that, and then the automobile owner would be responsible for remitting that sales tax through a use tax collection at the time that they register that vehicle with the clerk and recorder's office. And so this is simply one portion of that. You have to add that to the amount that is collected through the actual sales tax to see how automobile sales are doing. So that was down just 1% for the entire year. And then sales use tax on building materials collected through the Pikes Peak Regional Building Department through an affidavit method as well as direct method through El Paso County team. That was up 45% for the year. We did have a large commercial development pay their use tax in one lump in December of last year. So that's primarily a large portion of it. And so when you combine all three of those ways that we collect sales and use tax into one number, the amount was just shy of 2% for the year, so 1.99%. And you'll see 8% over, for December of 2025 over December of 2024. This is really important as it's an indicator of several things. One, obviously, how our economy is doing. I keep hearing people talk about how sales taxes are declining. That's in El Paso County, that's not fully accurate. We're not declining. We're just not rising as much as we initially projected in our budget. So our sales and use tax collections are still steadily increasing. So that shows that overall economic activity that's happening in our community. So being up 1.99%, so 2%. You can see the change from 2023 to 2024 was 1.85%. So kind of a very stable number that we're seeing. Overall, for the county, if you go back 20 to 30 years, we average about 6%. So this is lower than we average, but still showing positive economic activity in our region.
Wait, can you say that again? Over the past 20 years, we average 6%.
Year over year. So usually we see from one year to the next about a 6% increase. Okay. So you would see these numbers instead of being 2% on average about 6%. So this is less than an average year. And think about the increases that we see typically will include new retailers in the area, new increased spending, as well as unfortunately increased prices, right? Since it's a percentage-based tax, as prices increase on things that are taxable, you see increased revenues. And so overall, we're seeing that 2% increase for the year. This is also important to look at because if you remember back to our budgeting process, around mid-year, when we are starting our budgeting processes and going through in October, I brought your preliminary balanced budget. And what we were projecting in there, we only had through about July when we were doing that. So we projected a 1.5% for the rest of the year and then built our 2026 budget based on that projection. So we have to project what's going to happen the rest of the current year and then do another projection for the budget of what's next year is going to be over the current year. And we only have half of the current year to start that with. So at that point, we projected 1.5, and then we needed about a 2.3% increase year over year to be able to meet our 2026 budget. With these numbers coming in where they did, which was higher than the mid-year projection that we made, we need about a 1.8% increase in actual numbers now for 2025 to 2026 to this current year's budget to now hit our budgeted revenue forecast numbers. So as we continue through 2026, we're really looking for that 1.8% to meet our budget. With that, as always, how do I get out of here?
Can I ask another nerdy question? So some of that increase you said is based on just increased costs of goods. And so are you sort of basing that 1.8% off of just knowing that cost of living increases naturally, and so you feel sort of safe in anticipating that increased sales tax revenue?
A lot goes into our overall projection of where sales tax will be for the next year when we're budgeting. And so yes, it has to do with how much costs will rise, what we're hearing about discretionary wages happening in our region, economic trends. We follow closely and work with local economists, state economists, and try to projecting those revenues. Plus we use past history, more recent past history being more important, but overall history being important too. So in the end, the 2026 original adopted budget needed a 2.3% increase in sales tax, or projected for a 2.3% increase in sales tax
from
over
2025.
Okay. But that was based on the projection we had at the time, which again, we only had July and then very shortly before we presented the budget, August numbers. Mm-hmm. And so we were projecting a 1.5% increase for 2025. Well, now that that's ended at 2% for the year, this final number of $167.9 million, I now need 1.8% more in 2026 than that to hit our budget. So as you continue to see our budget reports for the rest of 2026, we are going to be looking for a 1.8% increase to meet that budget. So if you start seeing negative variances to budget, it'll mean that we're hitting less than 1.8%. If you're seeing positive variances to budget, we're doing more than 1.8%.
And
Does that help?
Yes, very helpful. How is it looking?
Oh, we don't, this is the most current information we have. So I have no data for 2026 yet.
Okay.
We won't receive January's sales tax information until like a week and a half from now.
Oh, okay. Okay. And just to point out that when people say sales tax revenue is down, it's more that they poorly anticipated or estimated what it was going to be. It's not that our economy is down necessarily. They just did not estimate accurately. And so according to their budget, they're having a shortfall, but you did not do that. Good job.
And I want to be clear, we do have a shortfall compared to budget. But not, it gets confusing, and I'm trying to explain it as well as I can. Our budget for 2025 was significantly higher than this. I can actually go to that page. Oops, went too far. So we were 5.2 million short of budget for the year, but we anticipated that very early into the year. Some of this had to do with the exact opposite scenario of what we're seeing now. In 2024, when we budgeted for 2025, we planned it, for a number. Then the economy kind of slowed a little bit more than we were anticipating in the budget in 24. So by the time 2024 finalized, we actually needed a 5.3% increase in sales taxes to hit budget. Well, we only got a 2% increase. So this is where you're seeing that negative variance to budget. But about midway through the year, it stops being as critical for, we plan for that, and then we reproject and start into the next year's budget. So we've planned for that variance. So this time it was a little bit the opposite the other way, whereas it came in a little stronger than our projection that we redid mid-year.
Got it. Thank you.
The other thing I was going to add is this is like the best time to go and look at the other reports that are online. We always have this public safety report, so it shows the dedicated public safety tax. But also there's this report out here that our team puts together with the comparisons for different categories within the State Department of Revenue Collection. So you can see overall retail, which is the primary component, was actually down 5%. Food services being up about 3%. Information, which is newspapers, magazines, I just scrolled too fast, 9%. Accommodations being up 4.6% for the year. And so you can just see a little more information of how some of these things are trending. And all of that is out there already on our website. Are there any additional questions for me? Great. I don't need any action on this item. It was just for your information presentation. Thank you, commissioners.
Great. Thank you so much. We always appreciate the hard work that goes into making sure that we are solidly on track with our finances. Thank you. Okay, item 13.
Item number 13 is the addendum, and there are no addendums today.
Item 14.
Item number 14 is the executive session, and there is no request for executive session.
Okay, with that, we've come to the end of all the items on this agenda. This meeting is adjourned.